Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Burn This Podcast. I am here this time to talk about an album that just came out, actually. It's called Burn This Pandemic. It is a compilation album of 20 comedians here in Los Angeles that came together to do their pandemic material. And all of the revenue for that album goes to help out an organization here in Los Angeles called SELA, Homeless Neighborhood Coalition. The final comic on the album is Tamra Brown, who I've known since I started doing stand-up, and Tamra actually volunteers and works with SELA in Hollywood here in Los Angeles. So I had her on to kind of like talk about what the org does and what all your album purchases go towards helping out with, and to try to understand the housing issues here in Los Angeles a little bit more. I think having empathy for our neighbors and working to help each other right now is incredibly important, and I'm really proud of this album and everybody on it. You're going to hear some amazing tracks from Estrada, Hernandez, Gethard, JoAnn Schinderle, and also Tamra Brown. The album is available wherever you buy albums. Burn This Pandemic. All of the money, literally every penny that it makes, goes towards SELA, an amazing organization that you're about to hear about. Enjoy!
We don't need no water, let the motherfucker burn.
This podcast. Tamra, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brandie.
Yeah. For the listener, it's awesome. I've known Tamra for, 17 years or something at this point?
Oh, good Lord.
I know. We hosted an open mic together back in the day, and look how far we've come. It's exciting.
What wonderful people we have turned out to be.
I know. And the same is not to be said for everyone that came to our open mic. So I think we're nailing it. That's the important thing.
Started from the bottom.
Yeah. I mean, truly, open mic hosting is the bottom. Yeah, so I've known Tamra forever, and she's an amazing, super funny comic. Does a lot of great characters and stuff online too. And she's one of the tracks on Burn This Pandemic, which is an album that Burn This Records put out, where all of the funds raised for it go to SELA, which is an amazing organization here in Los Angeles. And Tamra works with them all the time. And I just was really wanted to have somebody on to kind of talk about what they do, because I think it's LA has a really bad housing issue here, obviously. Tamra can speak on all the reasons why. SELA is one of the few orgs that is actually, there's more than a few, but SELA I think is one of the bigger orgs, that is really boots on the ground, helping people in person, building relationships with our houseless neighbors, and doing stuff that is going to become more and more important, I think, as time goes on. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So SELA, I'll kind of explain what it is on paper with the mission statement and everything, and then I'll give my personal assessment. So SELA is SELA Neighborhood Homeless Coalition. SELA stands for the neighborhoods: Silver Lake, Echo Park, Los Feliz, Atwater, and Hollywood. Because those are the neighborhoods that we serve. A lot of people think we're a religious organization because apparently SELA is a word in the Bible, which was a big surprise. Usually volunteers, anytime a participant is SELA, that's a biblical word. And we're like, oh, really? It's an acronym for the neighborhoods.
Yeah, okay.
And it's called Neighborhood Homeless Coalition because the goal of SELA is to bring neighborhoods together. The actual mission statement is a community where every neighbor thrives. And so, what they really value is, helping our homeless neighbors, but also getting our housed neighbors involved as well, so that, people can kind of see for themselves from firsthand. You may go into volunteering for the first time with some preconceived ideas. Mm-hmm. And then, once you're in there and seeing for yourself some things that you haven't even thought of, for me, when I first started volunteering, I didn't realize how many kids just age out of the foster care system and have no support system. And it's just that's a demographic that I never considered. We're living on the street.
Yeah, 100%. I remember seeing some video that really connected a big piece of it for me, because I was like, holy shit, you never think about the 18-year-olds that are just, okay, you're 18 now, bye. Yeah.
Yep. And have had no support system. They don't have family. They've moved around their entire lives. And so it's like, how do you expect this person,
Yeah.
to develop any type of moral compass when they've never had any type of support in their entire life? All they know is survival.
Yeah.
And then, I would say in my own words, how I would describe Sela is it seems to attract a type of person who is very good at problem solving. A lot of people, like sometimes if I'm talking about like in conversation with anybody, I'll mention that I do homeless outreach, and they're just like, "Wow, that's so you're such a good person. That's really great of you." And I'm like, I don't believe we are any more compassionate than anybody else. It's not
Hmm.
that. I think Sela particularly draws people who are very pragmatic and are
Hmm.
like, why is this how it is? Like,
Yeah.
what is wrong in the system? I need to understand what is wrong in the system that has led to this, and what are the steps that I need to take in order to solve it. I think it
Hmm.
particularly draws people who want to see charts and graphs and problem
Yeah.
solve why things are the way that they are.
No, I mean that makes a lot of sense. It's like and proactive doers that just want to be like, I'm not gonna just watch the problem happen in hand wring and hem and haw and, share an infographic every once in a while. I want to actually like be involved and tactilely, materially, working to help at least understand.
Yeah. Yep. And then, when it does, it takes a lot of follow through because for example, one of the Hollywood leads, her name's Claire, and she just went through this hellish weekend where she was trying
Mm.
to get one of the participants had a van that had been impounded, and it was going to take $3,000 for him to get his van out of this
Jeez.
impoundment lot. And so she like fundraised uh about $500 and then went down there to the impoundment lot because they were going to auction it off. So she ended up getting him his van back for like $300. But then
Wow.
it would take an hour and a half to tell the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
story. But like the every time it's Murphy's Law every step of the way when trying to put yourself in the position of trying to make somebody else's life easier, because every single step of the way, it reminds you that the system is broken. Everything is
Hmm.
constantly working against you. They would tow the truck, but the tow company was going to charge a fee, and they
Hmm.
also were extremely busy this day, and you had to use one specific tow company. And then she had to find a lot where she could tow it where it wasn't going to just get towed again. And anyway, but it's
Yeah.
like, people who are going like, okay, well, if we have to get to C, then I have to do A and B first. But then, oh, the way our city run, you can't just do B. You have to do A and a half first before you get
Yeah.
in. It just turns into a big mess. But
Yeah. Definitely. And I think that's like, very relatable to anybody, even if you aren't, houseless, because it is like I've had my car towed and it's ruined days of my life. And then also, I often that was actually I remember when the last time my car got towed, it was a very like kind of radicalizing experience for me because I was like, oh, I didn't have the money. I was able to call somebody to borrow money. I had a friend that wasn't working during the day. They could drive me around and figure my shit out. I don't have a kid that I have to like worry about or deal with. I don't have, my jobs are all very flexible as needed. So I wasn't like going to be fired for taking 2 days to do stuff. And I think people really don't realize how close they are to one thing unraveling everything.
oh man. So true. So true.
Yeah.
Those days that we've all had when you're on the phone with your health insurance company, but
Hmm.
they haven't received this form. So then you have to call the doctor's office.
Yeah.
And then the doctor's office says, oh, well, you were supposed to do this, and you have to, and you're sent back those days of just the bureaucracy of being a
Yeah.
human being. Imagine
Hmm.
that compounded by the fact that you haven't slept all night because you live on the street, you're hungry, your
Hmm.
phone died, you have 1% left on your phone before it dies, and then amidst all of that, if somebody came up and offered me drugs,
Yeah.
you better believe I might consider doing heroin having to compound everything all at once like that. Having those frustrations of how long it takes to get IDs and birth
Hmm.
certificates in order to start the process for even temporary housing. And then, you go through months and months of trying to get all of your documents in order. And then a sweep comes and in one morning, all of your stuff is gone and all of that work goes down the drain. And then, I'm like, yeah, I would probably turn to drugs too if that happened to me.
Oh, 100%. I absolutely see how it happens. It's like, it's so, I mean, disrespectful is such a light word for it. It just, we have such like a punitive culture and like and government here in California. And it's like, a lot of cities are like this too, but like, yeah, the sweeps and like of so many important things, medication, like, okay, fine. You just got medicated and you're doing okay. And then great, cool. You took my medication. Well, now I don't have the ID that I'm able to like get that prescription filled next time or even get new ones or anything. And it's like so quickly everything goes back to zero. It's not set up in a way to help people win.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not. It's every step of the process of trying to get housed requires so many hurdles and things you have to jump through that it's just like, why are we making it this difficult? Like I've helped, I briefly worked for a homeless service provider. I worked for LA Family Housing, and I would actually like help participants fill out their applications for Section 8. And the question that, first of all, it's like a 70-page document and you cannot miss a single line or square or they'll kick it right back to you. After holding it in an office for 3 months, you might get it kicked back to you because one line was missing information or something like that. But anyway, questions that it asks about like, your relatives, your family's history, like just in case there's not a multimillionaire that's trying to apply for Section 8 housing. And it's just like,
God forbid one person gets through ever.
Really, really trying to score that sweet $1,100 a month.
Yeah, exactly.
How's it going, everyone? I don't support small business. I do not support small business. I'm more of a big business type of guy. I don't support small business because I have IBS. I don't know if you've ever been on the verge of shitting your pants and walked into a small business that sells candles. And you know what? They don't have all that fucking soul they keep talking about that they have. Because they will not let you use their fucking bathroom. They will not. I even bought one of those shitty fucking candles and they were like, sorry, we just can't, That's why I fucking love places like Target, Walmart. I mean, look, say what you want to say about how they treat their employees, but they have compassion for those with IBS, Compassion. I drink Starbucks every day because I don't think I deserve nice things in life. I love Starbucks, I really do. I love Starbucks. There's only two types of people that love Starbucks: is adults who hate themselves and 15-year-old Latinas who love Frappuccinos. I love Starbucks. Starbucks really went downhill. Remember like 20 years ago when Starbucks started coming around and you thought you lived in a good neighborhood if there was a Starbucks? But like if you have a Starbucks in your neighborhood, I know you live in a shitty-ass neighborhood now. I'm just like, Starbucks is so bad they had to start a new Starbucks called Starbucks Reserve. And that's just Starbucks with the fancy, heavy wooden door. That's all it is, It's Starbucks with homeless people with iPhones. That's it. Starbucks is awful. I fucking hate Starbucks. I made the mistake of moving in with my girlfriend right at the beginning of the pandemic. It was awful. It's the worst mistake I've ever made. It was awful because we didn't fight once. We didn't fight at all. We actually got along better than we've ever gotten along before, which might sound good to you, but it's actually awful for me because it means I have to fucking marry her now. I don't have any more excuses, because back in January 2020, when she asked me, hey, when do you think we're gonna get married? You know what my reply was? I don't know. I don't think our relationship has been tested by a worldwide pandemic. Man, I feel bad for all those couples that didn't survive the pandemic. A lot of couples got divorced. I know a couple who was married for 10 years, 6 months into the pandemic. They got to know each other. They got divorced. Their love didn't survive. You know what did survive, though? The Denny's from across the street. That did survive. You know how many Denny's closed down nationwide during the quarantine? Only 15. You know how much the divorce rate went up? 34%. Nobody's love here is any more fucking special than the moon's over my hammy, I feel like if you want your marriage to last, get married in that weird banquet room that every Denny's has. What do they do in that room? It's always empty. I'm gonna have a daughter just so I can have her quinceañera in that room. Like, thanks a lot of
Can you tell me about like your journey to Sila and like your experience like working there and like how where you started, where you're at now and
Yeah, I started in 2021 and it was still like it was early 2021, so it was still in the days of lockdown at that point, and I wasn't working. And I had gotten like during lockdown, I had started to like over Zoom tune into my neighborhood council meetings and just get like a lot of people, just because of the social justice upheaval of 2020 and marching with Black Lives Matter rallies and things like that. Like I just got way more sort of active and tuned into city politics than I had ever been before. And so I think I had been in one of the neighborhood council meetings and they mentioned Sila. And so then I think I signed up on the neighborhood council website to start volunteering. And then once I started volunteering with Hollywood, I've only volunteered primarily with Hollywood. I've been to the other sites like just once here or there.
yeah.
And I just really liked the people and I really liked the mission, and I like people. So like you would, interact with somebody. We were just doing outreach at that time. So what we would do is we would all meet up at a certain location. We would have sack lunches and waters, and then we would go around to the tent encampments in Hollywood, and you just say, hey, anybody home? You want some lunch? You want some water? And you would start handing out lunches and waters. And that was really just a means to sort of strike up conversation, just to, you can tell if somebody is interested in talking or if they really want to be left alone. If they're interested in talking, you can strike up a conversation and just, say like, hey, do you have a case manager right now? If not, are you interested? I could see if somebody can stop by here during the week. Because one of the things is Sila does not do case management at all. We don't have the ability to, we don't have HMIS access. We can't do any actual like the government part of the CES system, the coordinated entry system, which is the steps that homeless people have to go through in order to start taking the steps into housing. We're not able to actually do that because we are only a volunteer-led organization. We're not a service provider. But we do have relationships with service providers. So we like to be the liaison between, sometimes a person on the street and their case manager. Sometimes, if you establish a relationship with somebody, you can, be the in-between person that, like, if their case manager can't find them, maybe they'll call you and say, hey, have you seen George lately, or something like that. So I just started doing outreach, and I really liked all of the other volunteers a lot. Our Hollywood group we are very, very lucky in Hollywood because our group is led by two geniuses, Louis Abramson and Brian Cohen. They are literal Brian's a rocket scientist at JPL. And Louis was an astrophysicist who has moved into politics. So they are very good at like data analytics. Louis one year organized the homeless count for 2020 when there wasn't going to be a homeless count because of the pandemic, and he realized how vital that is. And so he organized a homeless count on his own and collected data extremely efficiently. And they make sure that we're as accurate as possible when it comes to, numbers and, when we're seeing different patterns happen, figuring out why that's happening, things like that. So, so our group of volunteers was really, really great people. And then just, interacting with people on the street and, getting to know their stories too. It was just something that I wanted to continue doing. And then, so much so that when it was, things started opening up, I think it was July of 2021, I started working for LA Family Housing, and I worked at one of the last project room key sites. That was during the pandemic. Hotels were turned into housing. So I worked at the Sportsman's Lodge in Studio City when that was a shelter site. And so we were basically there for a month until that was going to turn back into a hotel. And so we had to start moving participants into either other motels or figure out where they're going to end up. And so then I worked for LA Family Housing for like 6 months, I think. I think it was almost exactly a year ago. It was September of 2023, the Hollywood site that had only been outreach, the SELA site that was outreach only, we finally got our own on-site location where every other Sunday we're open from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And so participants know that they can come and just come hang out, charge their phone, get some lunch, get a water, use the bathroom, things like that. Our site is at the center, which is a weekly, it's a service provider that operates Monday through Friday in Hollywood, but we don't have, in Hollywood, there's no weekend services. So that's why we wanted to provide something so that there was some sort of like weekend service. Actually there's Food on Foot, which are a big help to us as well. But yeah, so that's what we're at right now. The first and third Sunday of every month, we're open at the center in Hollywood. And we have volunteers who check people in because we like to keep track of the numbers. We have people who distribute coffee and lunches. Some people are just floaters. They just kind of walk around, say hi, see if anybody needs a cable for charging their phone or anything like that. Sometimes we'll have stuff to give out. We'll have donations or books or clothing, things like that. That all depends on what kind of donations we have at the time. But yeah, and that's how our site operates.
That's awesome. And you guys also kind of help facilitate like new driver's licenses and birth certificates and stuff sometimes too, right?
Yeah. So my friend Claire, who is the one that she helped get the guy's van back, she is our service desk lead. So yeah, she can give out DMV vouchers so that people can go get their IDs. She starts the process for birth certificates. She can give out tap cards, things like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, just all stuff that you'd need to just be able to live and exist in the city. And, I'd imagine also like from, our homeless neighbors' perspective too, it's like, oh, I have this thing to look forward to where I can also be in community with people like, that aren't just that I look forward to seeing and then, have a hot meal and get to hang out and feel a little bit more, I don't, normal is maybe not the right word, but it's like, they're not getting chased out of a McDonald's or something, just being treated like they're get out of here.
We don't have third spaces. Yeah, it's just like a place just to sit and chill, and it's like a peaceful atmosphere.
All right, you got COVID, make some noise. I heard noise. Fuck this. What if I just unzip this and Dr. Fauci popped out? Hey, pandemic was crazy, huh? See, we're connecting. That's what it's all about. Anybody else connect on this? Anybody else have a person, an adult man in their building that thought lockdown was the right time to learn Mary Had a Little Lamb on a trombone? For about 9 months, I was out of work. I was lounging, watching videos of white ladies getting dragged off of airplanes. Oh. And then out of the blue, every single day, this is what I would hear. Could never get the lamb. Mary never got that lamb. And then one day she got the lamb and the entire building started clapping. Who's inspirational?
Sometimes we'll have music playing. I'll have like new volunteers go around and ask people, like have a playlist, ask people what they want to hear, and like we'll put it on the speaker. And we also still have our outreach team too. So we're on site, and then we also have our there's a SELA van that will still do outreach to the tent encampments too. So that still happens also.
That's awesome. And like, this is something that donations go very far, I'd imagine, with an org like this, where it's like, you get a lot of donations, but also like money coming in. It's like that. It's not like donating to like a massive, not a knock against the ACLU or whatever, but it's like you're donating to them, like $10 to them is not going to do the same as what it would for something like SELA.
I mean, we can tell you exactly what it's going to. Like, for like, so any donations for this album is going to go to SELA as a whole. So it would probably be like split among the 5 programs. But for Hollywood in particular, we have to rent the space from the center. We have to pay for a security person and their on-site staffer, because we have a staffer from the center, and they're great. They're so amazing. It's Darian does our security, and Keon is our center staffer. And since the center is a provider throughout the week, they know a lot of the participants, but they're very good about like, it's important to know if somebody has had like violent incidents in the past or something, they know who not to let in. SELA, it's very important to SELA to not have any barriers. Like we really don't want to, make it difficult for people to enter. But that being said, there of course are, there's deal breakers where, something has happened. You can't, you have to have a list of people who have been banned for certain reasons. So they take care of that. And so, we have that. We have to buy like our water, our coffee, creamers, like those kind of really just basic supplies. It's really just bottled water, coffee, creamers, things like that. We have our sack lunches are from Hollywood Food Coalition. Our donations are, we had been getting like socks and underwear from Project ROPA, but Project ROPA actually went through their own funding difficulties. And so now they can't provide them free anymore. So there is a fee to have underwear and socks from Project ROPA now. So those are really our expenses. Those are our expenses for Hollywood. And then gas for the van that does outreach.
That makes sense.
So that's our site, but the other sites, the other sites, I imagine I don't know exactly what their cost breakdowns would be, but they would be similar things like that. And, we're using organizations that are getting deals on bulk hygiene kits rather than just go out and just run to CVS and buy 100 toothbrushes,
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That makes a lot of sense. Is it a thing where like if people make hygiene kits, they can donate them to you guys too? Is that something that's
absolutely helpful? And I did that for I had some friends over to watch the election results come in, and we made hygiene kits, which was super useful because people needed to keep their hands busy.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's like, in the aftermath of the election, like one of the things that I think, you see people saying online is like, we keep us safe and like our communities take care of each other. And I think this is like, a big reminder of so much of that, where it's like, all right, yeah, we don't nationally shit is bad, but like and locally shit is bad too, but we have control over that and we can actually help and like also just kind of nourish your own soul a little bit by not feeling helpless in the face of all this other shit, I think.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody. Joy to be here. Thanks for letting me be a part of it. What a cool venue. Feels good to be back.
2 comics ago, the comic was mentioning how we all had breakdowns during the pandemic, and a lot of people clapped and cheered. So I feel solidarity knowing that I'm not the only one. Do want to say, I want to just cautionary. I think I'm a little older than many of the people in the room. I turned 42 in May, and thank you. Other people in the 40s might agree with this. Just when you have your breakdowns, I just want you guys to know, I've learned recently, I used to throw around the phrase midlife crisis when I would have breakdowns in my 20s. And in my 30s, I would use that phrase, midlife crisis. And I just want to say, just say breakdown if you're younger. And because your feelings are very real. Your feelings are very real, and I'm not discounting them. Like, I had some times in those eras of my life that were fucked up and they were stressful, and that's real. And if you're feeling that, I'm not trying to be like your feelings are real. I'm just saying, call it a breakdown, because now I'm in my 40s and I know what a midlife crisis is. It's different. It's like when a quarter life crisis is different. When you're in your 20s and you have these feelings, you can burn it all down. You're just like, fuck it. I'm gonna quit my job. I have no plan. I don't even know how I'm gonna pay my fucking rent. I'm out. I'll just go fucking backpack in Europe. I'll sleep in hostels. I'll try drugs that I've never tried before. I'll get my hands on mushrooms for the first time. Fuck it. I'm having a quarter life crisis. That's a quarter life crisis, right? Like, I'm gonna join a fucking roller derby and get weird tattoos. Fuck it. That's the type of shit you do when you have a crisis in your 20s, your early 30s, right? Here's something that's a very real fact in my life. I live in a small town in New Jersey now, and I just had my 4th training session because I freaked out and volunteered to be a volunteer ambulance driver. That's a midlife crisis. That's a midlife crisis. When you are so bored and lonely and you have so few friends that you can reach out to that you're like, I guess I'll just fucking save lives? Like, that's a midlife crisis. My neighbor put a note in my mailbox that was like, we need volunteers for the ambulance. And my wife was like, you might be good at that. You're a good driver and you're weirdly good under pressure, even though you got the anxiety. And I went down to the firehouse to check it out, and this guy named Kevin was there hanging out with these other guys. And I was like, you guys hang out a lot? I'll be a part of this. Like, can I hang out? And I need friends. I have no friends, and I'm joining an ambulance squad. That's a midlife crisis. Like, think about how fucked up that is. If there's a town in New Jersey where if you call 911 between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. on a Thursday, I show up at your house in an ambulance and I save your life. That's a fucking midlife crisis. But I feel that because I've lived a lot of life and I've had a good time, man. And I stress out about career stuff like we all do. But I also look at it, I go, man, I've done a lot of cool shit. And there was a stretch there where if there was a cool comedy show, more often than not, like, I would get thrown a little part on it here and there. Like, there's a bunch of the cool hip comedy shows and they'd bring me in for an episode or two. And that's a cool thing. But now I feel so bad for the people in New Jersey because I'm so scared somebody someday is going to be like on a stretcher and they're gonna be like having chest pains, and then their dying words, they're just gonna look up at me and be like, weren't you Alana's boss on Broad City? And like, that's how they die. That sucks. That's gonna suck for them so bad. You hit Oscar with the pipe.
You know, we'll get volunteers who come the first time and then they just immediately jump right in and they're like, yeah, they just sign up for every, following shift, and they just enjoy the experience and interactions. One of the things that we say to new volunteers is like, if you need like a goal for today, it's just learn somebody's name, because you don't know how far that goes to just be able to say, hey, Brandie, good to see you again. Just somebody's name means a lot.
Totally. And I think people can kind of take for granted so much of just the way you interact with people on a daily basis, and how easy so many things are, and just the basic respect that we all give each other, and we should be extending it to our homeless neighbors as well.
One thing, it's so easy to give sympathy to somebody who is innocent, but like I think in one way, like as I was saying earlier, is like, we're not more compassionate than anybody, but you know what I think it does help your compassion grow. It's human nature to feel sympathy for somebody who, is completely vulnerable and is not being an asshole. But I think what you learn once you're doing the work too is like, yeah, sometimes somebody's screaming at you and telling you you're an asshole that doesn't mean that they don't deserve help, you know?
Oh yeah, I've dated people that have done that and not broken up with them. Like somebody that is living on the streets deserves that compassion much more.
Absolutely. I mean, if you believe in human dignity, you believe in it across the board. And so, you know, you'll encounter people that like they'll scream racial slurs and you have to tell them not to do that, but
Yeah.
you know, you're not denying them, no lunch for you today, Ralph.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't do that. It's like
Hmm.
if you are going to provide you know, trying to give dignity to somebody who has not had the advantages in their life that they should have. It's like you need to work with them in certain areas, but it doesn't deny that you're not going to deny them care.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that like a big, I don't know, a thing that I often say, I feel like whenever I'm like arguing with a lot of people is I'm not making an excuse, I'm adding context.
Mm,
And I think that like providing the context of how people get to where they are and how and once again like how close you can be to that and also being like, "Oh, well, yeah, well, Ralph's yelling X, Y, and Z because, he hasn't gotten his medication or like, he's hasn't had a good night's sleep in 6 months. Let's see how good you are after that." I mean, I think of that often where I'm like, man, if I have like one night of bad sleep, how shitty I am the next day, and then compound that with I at least was like in my bed and was secure. Like, during the heat wave we just had, like a month or two ago, there was one night my air conditioning stopped working and my house was like 95 degrees at night and I just
mm.
couldn't cool it off. I was like,
Ooh,
oh, my house is like uninhabitable for me and my old dog right now. Okay. I,
Brandie was a monster.
yeah, I know, exactly. Real monster. But it's like I could go to my boyfriend's house, I could rent a hotel room, and it was a moment of like, I have a lot of privilege that I have all these things that I could do right now and, take a beat of like gratitude for that, but also let that not create compassion, but also just like think of that when you're seeing people that aren't able to do things like, that are going
Yeah,
through shit.
yeah, that's very wise to
Yeah.
recognize that because so many people don't.
Yeah.
They don't recognize that the simplest things that we take for granted, just what a big difference it is, to not be able to sleep, to not be able to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
Um, we had this we we have this participant who I have a soft spot for. They are in their early 20s. They're non-binary. I don't know what their pronouns are exactly. We have a big and the different neighborhoods tend to have a different different
Demographic.
demographics of homeless people per neighborhood. Hollywood has a huge queer community
Yeah.
because of the LGBTQ center
Hmm.
that's in Hollywood. So we see a lot more gay and trans
Hmm.
homeless people than I'd say other neighborhoods do. But there's this young person who's been coming to the program, and they're very, very sweet. And I was trying to help them. They were saying that they wanted to get a job at H&M. And so we were
Hmm.
trying to see about like filling out an online application.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're just like, oh, I just wanted some white nail polish. So
Hmm.
I was going to bring them white nail polish. Well, come to
Oh,
find out they were kicked out. They're not allowed back at the center.
oh,
And
fuck.
I said, I was like, oh my, really? But they're so gentle. Like, what could
Yeah.
have happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
And apparently one day they were closing down
Hmm.
and this kid didn't want to leave. And so they went into the bathroom and took a giant dump on the floor. And and so now they're not allowed back in. And it's just stuff
Yeah.
like that happens all the time. We were just like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, frankly, I've been walking down Hollywood Boulevard, had to go to the bathroom, not been able to use the bathroom. I remember walking into a hotel one time that wouldn't let me use the bathroom, and I was like, there. My first thought was, I'm just gonna piss in your lobby, and I was like, man, don't do that. Like, but I respect the urge. I understand it. I have had it myself.
Yeah.
Let everyone use your bathrooms. What the fuck's the matter with you?
Do you guys ever wake up and think, oh my God, I'm gonna lose my mind. And then you talk to your grandmother on the phone and you're like, oh fuck, it runs in the family. Okay. My grandmother is 97 years old, suffers from dementia. Not as bad as Joe Biden, but she still suffers. Uncle Joe. My grandmother lives with my family in Wisconsin, and I got accidentally quarantined with them in 2020, which felt like a weird, twisted manifestation because I have this weird goal to like kind of be locked overnight in a bar somewhere. It sounds romantic, you know? But I guess being locked for months next to my dad's liquor cabinet was like a twisted fantasy. It works out. I love my family, I love them. It was exhausting being near them, though. You know, my mom was always like, JoAnn, why is there wine in the bathroom? I'm like, because I like to party, Mom! Leave me alone. Like that kind of exhausting. We just didn't get each other. I don't understand her. She had one sip of a margarita in high school, hated it, never touched alcohol again. I was like, well, duh. You had a high schooler make you a margarita. Their brains aren't fully developed. That's like blue toilet bowl water, I guarantee it. We just didn't get each other. It was weird being in like your 30s, living with your family again, accidentally. The arguments were different. You know, my mom would be like, why do you take such long showers? I'm like, well, Mom, to be fair, it takes a minute to shave this Italian bush, okay? And she'd be like, you get that from your father. Are you guys so bored with each other that like you're blaming your daughter's pubes on one another? Like, go to therapy. What are you talking about? I can't blame my family though for not talking about their feelings. You know, they were raised Catholic, their parents were raised Catholic, and in the Catholic religion, parents are not allowed to hug their children. But the priests. It was fun living back home with my grandmother, though. You know, dementia's kind of a fun disease. It can be. You know, she had no idea where she was. She thought she was at a hotel, and she thought my name was Simone. Not my name. Not a name of any member in the family, but at the time, I was an out-of-work actor, so it was like a gig's a gig. Okay. I'll gladly take the role of Simone. And I did my homework too. I created this whole backstory, you know? I was like, Simone's a divorcee, she moved to a small town, she's befriending elderly people, trying to do the Lord's work, you know, she's raising money to get some horses. I had it all down. But dementia's one of those diseases where every conversation's the same, if you ever experience it, you know? So every morning, I'd make my grandmother coffee, and every morning this is the same exact conversation. She'd be like, good morning, Simone. And I'm like, good morning, Helen, you look lovely. Simone, I've had 9 children. No one looks lovely after that, not even a dog. And I'm like, well, you wear it well, bitch. And then she'd be like, do you have children, Simone? No. Do you have a husband? Nope. A boyfriend? No. A girlfriend? Happy you asked, you old bitch, but no, I don't. She said, well, what do you do all day, Simone? Just take care of me? I was like, yes. Well, that doesn't sound so bad. Have they given you a raise? And I'm like, that's a great question, Helen. Let's bring that up to management. Hey, Mom! And then my mom would just be like, get the wine out of the bathroom, Simone! Thank you, guys.
You know, once you're on the street, I've seen things like, there's of course I don't know if you'd call it stereotype, but like I'd say most people assume that if people living on the street are either schizophrenic and drug addicts. And although both of those things are true, and there's a wide segment of that, it's really only about 25%. The reason that people assume that is, you know, who's largely on the street is because, of course, that's what you're seeing. You know, you're not noticing homeless people unless they're screaming in front of your car. You're not noticing somebody, you know, unless they're doing something nefarious within your periphery. But you're missing all of the people who are quietly spending their day at the public library or, you know, sleeping behind between a McDonald's and its dumpster, and you just never even see them. So, but where I'm going with this is that, you know, a lot of the trauma of living on the street and things that are normal in society are suddenly no longer normal anymore. And you start to, you might start doing crazy things that even if you don't have a mental illness, just because that's sort of acceptable in your way of life now. As you were saying, like, you walking into a hotel and peeing on the floor right now, that seems crazy. But I don't know. Once I've been through a year of trauma, I can't promise that I wouldn't do that. You never know.
And I mean, also, people just want to ignore homeless people so much. So, like, I also totally respect the urge to be like, fuck you, I'm here. If you won't acknowledge my person, I will make you acknowledge my person.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that's largely, I've always taken public transportation. And so a lot of times when somebody says like, oh, it's just like people on the train, though, they just try to harass you. And I'm always just like, if you don't engage, they go away, because they're kind of like toddlers who just want somebody to pay attention to them. And the only way, like a naughty toddler, the only way that they know how to get attention or interaction is to, punch the wall or scream or something like that, because that's what works for them as far as getting attention,
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%.
I think that the worst part of the pandemic was being stuck in an apartment with bad roommates. Well, that and having my final childbearing years stolen from me by government-sanctioned singlehood, but also shitty roommates. That was the worst part. I shared a one-bedroom apartment with 400 roommates. I slept in the bedroom, they slept in the outlets and under the refrigerator. They were awful. These were horrible roommates. They were terrible. They were very selfish, always in my stuff, had no respect. You know when you come home and you go and you like grab a bag of chips from the cabinet and without even asking, one of your roommates had babies in it. Just so disrespectful, just petty behavior like that. I know that they were using my Netflix account too, because I would log into Netflix and it would be like, continue watching, cardboard box. Yeah, so I told my landlord, I was like, these roommates, this isn't working. My roommate's Stitch, it's not working out. And he was like, all right, no problem. I will take care of the situation, but you have to leave the apartment for 4 hours. Now, this was at the height of lockdown, when everything was shut down, there were no cars on the street, air was breathable, nature was thriving, just the worst, right? Remember, so uncomfortable. It was like that point in time. Remember what it was like when you would walk outside your front door to steal your neighbor's Amazon delivery, and then you'd feel really guilty about it? Not for stealing, just the going outside part. That point in our nation's history. So I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do with myself for 4 hours? So I took the bus to the beach, and for those of you who don't take public transportation, and I know that's all of you, I'll tell you something about riding the bus. On the bus, all the time, there is a certain person, we'll call them men, who feel that it's totally acceptable to clip your nails in public. That is the soundtrack of riding the bus, just that little metal chirp constantly. That is very common. And I don't understand it, because I feel like we have societal approved things that we do when we are bored or we're trying to pass time. You pull out your phone, you check your email, you check text messages, you check social media. You people watch, you meditate, you can do grooming things. You can put on chapstick, you can put on hand lotion. There are things that you can do, but you cannot do something that's leaving remnants of your body behind. That is not okay. So every time, an anti-masker would say something like, all these liberals, they're so paranoid. They wear masks. They wear 2 masks. I'd be like, yeah, I wear masks. I wear goggles. I wear an antique deep sea diving helmet if it will protect my head from a stranger's finger shrapnel. I wear all of it. And even now, don't you still hear people doing that thing where they're just like, yeah, I don't buy into the paranoia. I don't know how many times I heard that phrase from somebody. I don't buy into the paranoia. paranoia. And they would say it so confidently, like very self-congratulatory. So I would always give them the response that they want to hear. I don't buy into the paranoia. Wow! I didn't realize I was standing in the presence of a hero. I'm so impressed by your valor. Will you be my king? Wait till I tell my emotional support they thems that I just met the bravest human alive. No, I would give them the legitimate response, which is, yeah, I wear a mask. I do wear a mask still. I have to wear a mask at work. I wear a mask when I'm on the bus. Not because I'm paranoid that I'm going to catch COVID, but it's because we all know at this point that our fellow human beings are fucking disgusting.
One of the reasons I wanted to do this album is I feel like that comedians, much like the toddler on the train, want attention. And I mean, I love doing these like community building activities with stand up as much as I can too, to be like, hey, the pandemic, I think like if it didn't radicalize you in some way, you weren't paying attention, or, is kind of how I feel.
Yeah.
And I think it also like exacerbated so many of the issues that we have in LA. So the album is like 22 comedians doing jokes about the pandemic, basically, and all the money goes to Sela. Yeah, it feels good to like be able to use, that skill to like help out and everything too. And then, I think there's a few people that have also been like, they're like, man, my comedy can actually like not just stroke my own ego. That's nice. I'm like, yeah, you can do things for a good cause. It's nice.
You're particularly good about that.
Oh, thanks.
Making things for the greater good.
Try to do my best. Well, the album is Burn This Pandemic. It's available literally everywhere. Buy it. Or listen to it a million times, and we'll take the streams too. That works. But all the money goes towards Sela. Thank you, Tamra. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. I'll see you soon. Have a good night.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.